Okay, hello again. For those people who want to be bored for 10 minutes, I thought I'd do a video to follow up on the last one of how I actually do strip these down, just in case anybody decides that they want to harvest some of these batteries. This is the easiest way. I'll show you two batteries. That is the old type of Dyson battery handheld Hoover, and they're both. I use the same method for both, and that's the newer brushless version. So we'll start with the the earlier version first. So you get said screwdriver. I've actually used this tool here. Sorry about the movement on the camera, which is a vibration tool. Just cut into the side of the battery case, obviously being very careful that you don't get too close to the cells, which, to be fair, is difficult to do. So this is where it gets a bit tricky, because these are a little bit more tricky than the others. Sometimes you have to get a little bit more brutal on them and start just stripping back some of the plastic. I'll have to use said tool. There we go. These are a little bit more tricky to get into than the others, but needless to say, we still managed to do it. Let's just lever that down. Oops. And you want to get your screwdriver and ram it in sort of like that. Now, you're not damaging the cells, because as you'll see in a minute, there is a plastic shroud on the cells themselves. That's sort of what you're looking at. So what you want to do is, sorry, that's the side. You sort of get your screwdriver in and you just oink it this way and drop everything on the floor. And you're actually seeing this warts and all. So in again, oink it open like so. And there you go. Unplug, first of all, snip the main power leads, because this isn't any use. This has got one of these micro switches in, and it's also got a jack, but if you can see inside there, they're different. And they don't use this sort of jack anymore for their charging. So these are very useful if you're building projects and you want to get power to something. So I'm harvesting these, and I'm just going to bang them on eBay and see what they do. They might not sell, but I'll just put them as a drop lot rather than throwing them away and adding to landfill. You know, it's even if they don't sell, I might even just put them there for 10 pence the lot, you know, just so that they will sell, and no doubt somebody will have them, and at least they're not going to landfill then. Right, next part is now this is where it gets a bit tricky. You have to be careful. You get the screwdriver, and looking at this, you want to really try you want to really try and lever it on the plastic as much as possible, because there you've got your live or your positive connection. Now, if you're short across there and there, which is that plastic's very thin, you can short the battery out. Only for a second, but you know, it's best not to unless you really have to. again, I know what I'm doing, so, and I know how far I can push these batteries. So you hoik both sides like that, drop the screwdriver on the floor again. Because, like I say, again, these are very difficult. Just pick that screwdriver up. So then, you're left with a cell like that. Well, a number of cells. So then I go ahead and snip. Just check that that's you're being able to see what I'm doing. Snip, snip. And then oink that over, push the tab over so you're not shorting anything. Oink that over, push it over again. Pull it that way. Get your snips. Now this is again where you can cut yourself, as I mentioned on the last video. You can actually see there where that's the negative side, and it's actually damaged the cell where I've levered it out. I won't use this cell. I'll discharge it and scrap it off because I don't want any damage really on the canisters, especially if I make a big battery with it. And I've got one cell like that. To me, it just increases, I don't know if it would or not, but it increases the risk of a failure of that cell. So, you know, after spending hours and hours of work building a battery pack, you don't really want it to fail or lose capacity just through one cell. So just belt and braces, which we say in the UK, just to cover yourself. I won't be using that cell, even though it would possibly be fine. I've got so many that I'm not really going to give it that chance. So you get your side nippers or your side cutters or whatever you want to call them in whatever country you are, and you grab and twist. And these tend to come off quite readily on this particular type of battery pack. They don't seem to be spot welded that well. Obviously they're spot welded so that they make the connection and they do what they're supposed to do, but it's not as aggressively spot welded as these cells are, which you'll see when I do that in a minute. So off we go with pulling off these. And incidentally, these cells that I'm salvaging now, if you go online, you'll find a lot of cells that have been salvaged in the same sort of way, out of power tools and things like that, and people are selling them as reconditioned cells. Usually, why these batteries are taken, I don't know if I've mentioned it, I will mention it again. That's the old BMS taken off. Again, possibly some use for that, but to be quite honest, I'm not going to go any deeper into that one because I'm just going to scrap it off. So, yeah, where was I? Yeah, they put them up as reconditioned cells, and they've just been salvaged the same way. So, anyway, we'll continue getting this off. Some people are probably thinking now, who've never watched anything to do with electronics from me, why the hell is he being so boring and taking all that time to salvage these cells? Well, I'll tell you, because these particular cells, to buy them second hand, would probably cost me at least £1 each, $1.50 each. And I've paid a lot less than that. I've paid £90 for 60 of these. So you can do the math yourself and work out how much I'm saving and making on it. So with me sitting down and being disabled, I can do this. This is something I can do and make myself some, possibly a little bit of money, or possibly even recoup my money back by selling at least half of the cells that I've salvaged, and then the other half will have paid for themselves, and I'm recycling as well. Right, here comes the I know what you're all going to say, that is a metal part, and I'm going to ram it in there and possibly short the battery out. But again, being careful, I'll push the battery out slightly, and there you go, one cell. Now then, we have the same sort of situation on this, where this protective rubber can and will stop the batteries from coming out. So, oh, this one's coming off easy. So you take that off, because as you slide the cell out, that will get caught on here and rip the protective casing on the battery, the plastic. So you don't want that to happen. So then I merrily go along, get my little hammer, and tap, 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 tap. These sometimes are tight, but don't ever, for any reason, do what I'm doing. I know the risks, I know what I'm doing. I've got contingency plans if one of these do short out and go nuclear. I've got a metal piping by the side of me. Idea came from Clive, Big Clive, which I can just chuck it in and then get my wife to run it outside. I put it in the back garden and watch the fireworks. That one's a bit tight. And then you just pull. That one's going to be a bit pull. That one needs a little bit more persuasion. Tappity tap tap. Well, that's tight in there because the hole is a little bit smaller than my extraction tool. But you can see there, sometimes it damages them, and you'll see on that cell especially how they get caught up. So those cells then, they all go in a box, which is, the box is actually marked to be tested. So every single one of these cells will go through a charge, discharge and recharge cycle, which will tell me exactly how much capacity they've got. That incidentally goes in the bin. So anybody who buys them knows that they're a good quality cell. It's got plenty of capacity in it. I wouldn't sell under any circumstances a cell that wasn't safe or wasn't tested. So, right, and we go to this one, and helps if you put the right screwdriver bit in, Paul, and we get the right end, which is a little Torx bit. I believe it's a, God, I can't see that, T8 for those who are playing at home. Unscrew that, put that in my little screw box. Right, just give it, when you're stripping these give you a good idea of whether the cells are any good. You give that little pin there a little press, and it'll give you a blue light. Sometimes it goes green. Full is charged. Blue means it needs charging. Usually, as a rule, each individual cell is at 3.65 volts, which is usually that's a discharged, or I'd say about 70% charged, which I found that if I stuck them on a shelf and left them for 12 months or so like that, they'd be fine. I'd come back to them and they'd probably be exactly the same, or very, very, very close capacity still left in them. So yeah, so the way we get these out is almost exactly the same, but these will be easier, as you'll see. Straight away the screwdriver goes down, oink it out like so. We take that screw out for obvious reasons, so that comes off. I do prefer doing these cells, they're a lot easier and quicker. Snip the wires, remove the little micro switch for recycling, and then this little switch here, get your knife cutters or your nippers or whatever, and you have to bend those across so that will slide up and out. Done. In the bin. Oh, and that's the little button again in the bin. I hate throwing all this plastic away because I know it's going to go to landfill. Get your screwdriver, take the magnet off it. And these terminals here, it's not to worry if you short these out, because what will happen if you do short these out and touch them together like I'm doing now, this board here, which is a battery management system, automatically, if it's fully charged, will sense there's a short and it'll shut the power off directly to these, so you can't do any damage. Oik it out, one side, two sides, it clips brake and it comes out. And here we are with the pinky cells again. As you can see, different construction to this one. In my opinion, a lot better construction. I mean, these were genuine Dyson battery packs, and I think this is some of the earlier versions. These are some of the later ones, but I haven't got any of the latest ones to show you. But if you look at them, you can see they're coated. That's a silicon coating all over the electronics and underneath, so that you know, I mean, not this end, but you know, it's protected from moisture to a certain extent, and short circuits on one thing or another. I don't really know why they don't do the whole board. I think it's something to do with they do partially of the board and then these are soldered out after in the manufacturing process. But I can't, for the life of me, I can't see why they would do just that part of the board and leave that like that. It's beyond me, really. But yeah, and these are labelled, as you can see, possibly they're Dyson. And like I say, these are Dyson, as you can see there, but I think they're made under license by another company, hence why they're not so well made. And this was probably Dyson had actually farmed out making the batteries when they first started, and when the company got bigger they actually got their own battery manufacturing plant, and that's why, hence the difference. But I mean, look at all this plastic around here reinforcing. I mean, there's very little on that, but it's sufficient. You know, if you chuck it on the floor, it's not going to break. I think that's a bit overkill, if you ask me. But I mean, I'm no engineer. It's just like, you know, they obviously want the cells to be as secure as they possibly can. Right, so very quickly, first of all, get it in order. You take this little screw out of here, drop it in there, drop that in there, screwdriver underneath. That is underneath is covered in that silicone as well, so you're not shorting anything. But anyway, it's only for a short bit. Push it under, down. That breaks those three contacts. Pull it to one side, over. And anybody who doesn't know anything about electronics and thinks, oh, that's 22 volts, you can get electrocuted. You can't get electrocuted. You need a decent amount of voltage, probably 70 to 80 volts, with a lot of amps, probably more than that. I'm no electronics expert. I'm no sort of electronics professional, so I'm just guessing at that. But you need a lot of volts and at least a few amps to electrocute yourself or come to any harm. But shorting these batteries, as I've shown you, like so, you know, they can cause you a lot of harm in other ways. Now, hoik, hoik, hoik. Incidentally, if if you do want to learn a lot more about electronics and you find this interesting and find strip downs, rebuilds, and when you've got sort of circuits like this and you want to know how they work and want to learn, I recommend you go either to bigclive.com or Big Clive's YouTube channel. He's fantastic. He's very intelligent. He's very knowledgeable in electronics. He's an electronic engineer, and his channel really is fun. Or you can go on to Julian Lent. He's another one who's very interesting. It's all right. Same procedure, but he's a little bit more involved. Like I said to you before, they are very difficult, more difficult on the spot welds. They seem to be better. Spot welds seem to be better than on those outsourced ones. Saying that, it's calling me a liar. They're all coming off. There you go. See, they don't come off as cleanly, which is a good thing as robustness goes. There you go. I have had these in the past where these contacts haven't been there and the battery's failed. They've just come away because the spot welds aren't as good. And I tend to do that. I tend to stay clear of the other one as you're doing this. Doesn't really make that many charges now because you've taken all of the connections off that side. That's why I always do this side first and then come to this side, because they're out of circuit. And as you can see, that one's broken off. 9 times out of 10, that's how they come away anyway. So there we go. And it's off. And again, if you are doing these, be very careful, because this is extremely sharp and it will cut you. Right. Push out. Push out. Now that one's tight. That one isn't. And what we do with these is we put that and we go tap, 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 tap. Not that hard, because you don't want to damage the centre part. And we go tap, 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 tap. And that one's come out. So it's a bonus. And that one's coming out as well. There we go. I'll show you what I do with those in a minute. I think I already have, but just in case. Now, to get that out without hammering it and to salvage the cell, you get your tool, noise alert. Top off like so. I have to cut a bit more off that because it's going to stop it coming out. There we go. And we get that, and then we just tap it tap. That one is tight, and yeah, that one's damaged now because I've had to damage the bottom, but it's, yeah, that one is potatoed. And sometimes you do get that, nothing you can do about it. So what I'll do, that's obviously a charged cell, dangerous, you can't put it in the bin. I recycle it safely. So what you have to do is discharge the battery, so it's got to come out. So what incidentally keeps these in, I think I've covered this before, is that little bit of bitumen or whatever. It sticks to the outer casing, and as you get them out, it rips them off. No way of doing it but the way I'm doing now. So again, this is a vibrating tool. It's not sharp. I can touch that, and as you can see, it doesn't cut me, but because it's vibrating such a high rate, it will cut through the plastic. So we'll go down the cell. Obviously you've got to be careful on how far you do go with that, and you can feel it when it hits the metal, and that's fine. I mean, don't get me wrong, these are fairly well held together. The metal is quite thick, so bend, pull cell out, and as you can see, that's damaged. I won't use that, so that'll be discharged. It'll be discharged. But anyway, that's that. I hope this was informative, and I'll catch up with you when I've got something else to show. Okay, thanks for listening, and stay safe. Bye bye.